All right, and Mandy is taking us live on Facebook as we speak. And we are live on Facebook just like that. And this, I think, Mandy, I think this makes 6 webinars in a row that we have not had major technology challenges. I'll knock on wood, but this may have been the fastest yet.
I'm getting better at this, that's for sure.
All right.
Well, this is why you're here, even not feeling great. And thank you for being here to push the buttons, because it would have been a complete disaster left to me and Bob. So thank you for that. So thanks everybody for joining. And as you're rolling in, we'll just set the stage for what we're here to talk about today with you. We are going to be talking about the future of cybersecurity. We're going to take a little bit of a look at the current landscape and where the trends are predicting we need to look over the next 12 months at the horizon. And we're going to talk about some actionable things that you can do today to help start protecting on some of those defensive areas. So I'm Sam. I'm happy to be here with you. Yep, the product and solutioning over here. So me and my team spend a lot of time talking with accounting folks and learning about kind of current state, what their objectives are, and then consulting on how we can get them to the future state that they desire. And we're happy to have Bob with us. Bob joined us in 2019. He's got a long history in technology and helping customers with digital transformation, but not just the act of transforming, but understanding why the changes are coming and what it means for their business, and being able to cut through the noise and get to the stuff that's important. So glad to have Bob on for this one.
Glad to be on, and I hope to help cut through the noise, Sam, on cybersecurity today.
I know you can. And we trimmed this down. We had so much we wanted to talk about. It really could have been 2 or 3 sessions. So we trimmed it down into what we thought could be manageable in the hour that we're going to have with us. So we're going to be talking about understanding that current threat landscape. We're going to talk about how to leverage AI. Bob's also going to talk to you about how AI is being leveraged by the bad guys. We're going to talk about how important training is for your teams and what creating a culture of security is really about. And then we're going to talk about the future, because there's change coming for all of you. I think the key message is there's change coming for you, and there's change coming for your clients. And this is a transformative time.
Yeah, I'm excited for all these topics, Sam. And that fourth one will be maybe a surprise to some of our guests today. As we think that this is a great space for our accountant partners, bookkeeping partners to play a role. All right, so I'll jump in. What are the current and emerging threat landscape items that are out there? So no surprise, cybercrime continues to rise. There's no doubt about it. Why is it on the rise? It's becoming big business, if you haven't already noticed. And in some respects, cybercrime is actually becoming easier for a lot of the criminals that are out there. Not great news for all of us. There's maybe a mistaken impression out there that cyber criminals are lone wolf actors out acting independently, targeting specific companies and creating all the mayhem that's out there. Well, more and more cybercrime is being conducted by syndicates, crime groups, and really organized businesses. In fact, some of these businesses you'll hear later on are even joining up and teaming to do cybercrime today. So it's on the rise. It's become a big business, and we're all suffering for it. As these companies come together, as these cyber criminals come together, they're even sharing their software techniques, their strategies, their hacks. And there's this concept out there that you can now go find malware as a service. And that's that enables almost anybody to become a cyber criminal and target companies for ransomware and other kinds of cybercrime. So as a result, it's becoming even more widespread. More and more folks are being attacked. It's not just the big guys. And then something else that's making it easier for cyber criminals is they're using AI, artificial intelligence. They've got AI engines that are continuously probing the internet, looking for weaknesses, looking for openings, looking for soft spots in the defenses that companies have put out there. This AI is also out there correlating a lot of data about you and your business, and they can consequently then take that correlated information to socially engineer an attack on your business. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So in addition to, a lot of things that you'll see on television and in the news about big hacks and big attacks, there's just a lot more going on with smaller attacks, and there's just many, many more. They're simpler, they're straightforward, and a lot of them are just looking to trick you into giving up key information and to steal money from you. So we'll talk about those. Sam.
Awesome. So what should you be looking out for? What's on the horizon that you need to be aware of in terms of trending? Bob mentioned the nature of cyber attacks is changing. It's no longer just the one kid, the one guy, or a couple of guys, right? It's the sophisticated network. And so just as their business model is evolving, none of us can look back at our business from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago and say that it looks exactly the same today. We're evolving, our businesses are evolving, your business is evolving. So some of the things that you need to be on the lookout for are going to include those increased ransomware attacks. Bob just told you why. And you can trust that social engineering is going to be one of the leading entry points. Simply put, social engineering is really just manipulation. So it's bad actors using credible information to get you to give up something that you shouldn't. That's all it is. And it can look like any number of things that we're gonna talk about, different ways of social engineering here in a minute. But also keep an eye on regulatory compliance changes. You saw last year, mid-2023, the FTC finally enforced that you guys all had to have your written information security plan in place. Trust that over the next 12 months, we'll expect to see some more little nuanced changes as we go, because we saw this with wealth management. We have, our registered investment advisor clients, and we watched this evolution with the SEC. So far, it looks very similar to what the FTC is doing. So, almost suspect that they're using it as a little bit of a roadmap for the timing and the changes that they're asking you all to comply with. And then with remote work, when you send your workers home to work remotely, you're expanding your threat landscape, of course. When they're in the office, if you have an office, right, there's likely a firewall and a switch and some access points and hopefully a segregated network. So your workers are on one username and password for the Wi-Fi, and your guests and visitors are using a different network. Wi-Fi username and password, so you're segregating that network traffic. I suspect that at home that's just not happening. So there's a number of work from home best practices that we recommend, and we don't have a QR code for it in this presentation, but if you want that work from home best practices guide, let us know in the follow-up email. We'll be happy to send that out to you. And then AI, right? AI is in our daily conversations. It's helping us be more collaborative. It's helping us be more creative. It's helping us analyze data more efficiently. And in the cybersecurity world, AI is also taking center stage when it comes to protecting data. So we're going to talk about some of the ways that AI and machine learning are being used. So keep an eye on the, all of the stories and the emails you're hearing with these different threats and these different remediation tactics. You're going to start seeing that AI is deeply embedded in a lot of the next gen tools that are widely available today.
And I'll be touching on, Sam, I'll touch on the supply chain vulnerabilities. Guys, we're seeing supply chain attacks more and more common, and probably even in a greater quantity than regular ransomware attacks. So we're going to talk about that, something you need to be aware of.
Absolutely. So now that we know what to look for, let's just talk about malware and level set a little bit. Put simply, in the most simplest terms, malware is software. How it gets there and what it does once it's there can vary drastically. Some of the most common ways that you're going to see malware actually getting into systems and networks and onto devices are going to be through things like email phishing or maybe malicious attachments. Spear phishing, another type of phishing out there. Smishing, so that's that SMS. So when you get that text message that says your Amazon delivery couldn't be delivered and it's not from Amazon, right? So you've got your smishing that's out there. Vishing, which Bob has a story on coming up here. Vishing is voice phishing, so that's the tried and true, pick up the phone and just beat somebody down until they give up and let you in. Spoofing. So spoofing is an interesting one. That's when you get an email that looks credible. It looks like it's coming from someone that you trust, but it's actually not. And then business email compromise, another type of spoofing. So some of the most common types of malware that can come from those different entry points are going to be things like ransomware, Trojans, spyware. You've probably heard of worms and viruses, of course, and then these things called keyloggers and screen loggers. So let's talk about what those are. So ransomware is really just a type of malware, but its behavior is to grab, hold, encrypt data, and demand payment, right? That's our ransomware. Some ransomware may threaten to delete the data. It might threaten to expose it publicly, or it might increase the ransom request if it's not paid on time. So those are the kinds of things we see with ransomware. Trojans, those are things that hide in a legitimate file or program. So you have something that's legitimate, but you have this Trojan that's hiding. We've all heard the stories about the Trojan horse, right, in mythology. So it's similar to that. That's how it got its name. It hides in something legitimate, and then it manipulates things once it's in there. And it can do anything from just stealing data, but it can also actually infect other programs. So once it's in, it can go and manipulate how another program responds. And it's even been known to cause financial fraud. Moving on to our spyware examples. So these are really just what it sounds like, spyware. It's designed to spy on and gather information about you and relay it to other parties. And sometimes Trojans can actually be classified as spyware. But then we get to the really interesting keyloggers and screen loggers, and they are designed to capture all of your keystrokes, or in screen logging, it's capturing keystrokes as well as screenshots to go along with it. And they often enter your systems through a download of corrupt software. So you have a software installation package. Maybe you think it's a Zoom update. Maybe you think it's a Microsoft update. And in comes this bad piece of software that's now going to sit there and gather a bunch of information about you and pass it on to other people. So now that we know kind of what some of those malware specifics are, maybe we should talk about the number one way that it actually gets there, which is going to be social engineering. And we said, social engineering in its simplest is a bad actor using credible information to get you to give something up. And in almost every one of those malware types that we just went over, social engineering is often behind it. It's often the way that it gets to the point that someone's going to download that bad software file or open up that bad or malicious attachment or click on a link that might get them to a corrupted website. And remember, that could be through spoofing. It could be through someone weaponizing a QR code. We've all become really desensitized to using QR codes ever since 2020, when the restaurants all said, okay, we can't give out paper menus anymore, remember? And we're going to give you a QR code. You can look at the menu yourself. Unfortunately, bad actors have ways to weaponize those as well. But I think one of the most highly publicized events was a vishing social engineering attack. And Bob, do you want to talk about that one?
You bet. Check it out. This is a ransomware. We're going to talk about a ransomware event that used vishing to break in, and it was through social engineering that their vishing was convincing. So here's an example of how a hacker broke in and created real mayhem and hundreds of millions of dollars of loss for a company. So this is not long ago. It's the September 2023 hack of MGM Resorts. This was a major hack. It went on for 10 days in September, whereby ransomware was put on MGM systems and brought their automated systems to a halt at big iconic properties like the Bellagio, the Cosmopolitan, Cosmopolitan, Mandalay Bay, and a lot of MGM properties really across the country even. It was pretty amazing. And you can see from the picture, slot machines weren't working, room keys weren't working, the electronic payment systems weren't working. Basically, MGM's business ground a halt. They even resorted to pen and paper to do transactions. You can imagine the loss of revenue, the disgruntled customers that they had that resulted from this ransomware event that ransomed their systems, locked them all out of their systems for 10 days. Now, this happened via a major hacking group that's known as Scattered Spider. They claimed the responsibility for it. And the amazing thing is that they actually teamed up with this Alpha V ransomware group that had the software. So here's an example of like two crime syndicates coming together to implement a big hack. This Alpha V, they're really known for attacking big companies, big hacks, big efforts. And the missions like, typical ransomware, encrypt systems and bring the company to their knees so that they have to pay a ransom. Scattered Spider is the one that's also behind the attack at Caesars. So Caesars also got hit. Guess what though? They paid the ransom, $30 million ransom. So here's a sophisticated attack using lots of different methods to get in. The way that Scattered Spider got in is they placed fraudulent phone calls into employees and into the IT desk at MGM. So through social engineering, they learned who was who, a little bit about the business, a little bit about the operations. They scoured LinkedIn. They found numbers for IT support, and basically they phished the people, the IT help desk, over the phone, voice phishing, to gain credentials to systems. So they got somebody to give them credentials to their systems. But the worst thing that can happen. So it was a really impressive effort where they impersonated employees to get these credentials. And once they had the credentials, they were in. They applied the ransomware and created mayhem for MGM for quite some time. So big example of multiple techniques used to implement a major hack on a big company. But we're going to talk about how this can actually come to you as well. So a big example there of most notably phishing and social engineering coming together to get past the defenses of a major IT corporation, a major corporation with significant IT defenses. Sam, back to you.
And I think it underscores just how much credible information is available socially. We work with a ton of accountants that are educators and influencers, and they are highly social, right? So there's information about every conference they're going to, and when they're on planes and who they're there with. So there's a tremendous amount of information that's available out there, and the MGM story, I think, really underscores that it doesn't have to be something sophisticated technology that gets the information, right? It can be an actual person on the other end of the phone. And so it's so important that we train our teams. So let's talk about some of those strategies. Strategies for improving cybersecurity awareness. The data that bad actors are after is always in one of three states. It's either at rest, so we're just sort of storing it somewhere. It's in transit, so maybe we're working on a remote desktop, and that information, all those bytes are being passed over an internet connection, or it's in process. So maybe we have software that's talking to data and changing it. But there are also three sort of defense areas that are going to protect those three ways that data exists. And so we have people, we have process, and we have tools. It's critical that we prioritize cybersecurity in a way that provides training and hands-on experience and simulations to our team, so that they understand what to look for, what the latest trends are, and what some of these attacks maybe look like. And there's some great programs out there. platforms, and we're going to talk about some of that. It's also going to be important to look at your defenses from a policy perspective. So getting that WISP in place, circulating the written information security plan, that WISP with your employees, having them sign off on it, acknowledging that they know where and how they should be using systems and accessing data. Some of the other policies that can be put in place are actually technology policies. So you can, through your IT person or your IT provider, you can set policies on those workstations that you're providing to your team that say that it has to meet certain criteria before it can access company data. And those criteria are going to be security criteria, things like multi-factor authentication and password complexity, stuff like that. And then through the training, there's also simulations. The good platforms are going to run simulations and automatically enroll people back in remedial training. Then you can also set rules, and these rules can be social rules, so it can be agreements between employees, or they can be more of the software type rules that restrict what can be done when and where. So the bottom line is you really need to create a culture of security and make sure that it touches on all three of those aspects for defenses. So it's going to be your people, your process, and your tools.
Okay, let's dig in here now. All right. So Sam just walked you through the big picture strategy elements that you've got to address. And good news for you is there's lots of tools, there's lots of resources out there for you to tackle that strategy and get secure in a quick fashion. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the tools and technology that's out there, make this simple, and show how approachable and how readily you can address these things. Now, they might sound a little complicated or scary looking at the slide, so let's break it down, right? So first off, you need a cybersecurity workforce framework. That does sound complicated, right? But there's lots of frameworks out there designed for your industry that can help guide you and help you close all the gaps. This is where you're going to set your policies, you're going to set your guidelines. There's going to be tips and tricks or guidelines for your infrastructure, for firewalls, things like that. A lot of things get defined there. When you set that framework, you're also going to want to set it with an eye to the security standards that go for your industry and what the best practices are for your industry. And more industries have a best practice, or they have rules like IRS standard 4557, which now applies to all of us, right? And that's a framework. That's a framework. It's simple, it's approachable, and marrying that with some cybersecurity technology, and you get there. You can get there. So it sounds scary, it looks complicated, but the way you address these first two boxes is really just to create that written information security plan. Create that written information security plan. Now, Visory's expert at this. There's other experts at this. We know how to craft the security plan and address these two boxes for you. We know what frameworks apply. We know the industry regulations for accounting, right? So it seems daunting when you read these things, you know, workforce framework, oh my gosh. But a WISP solves that. A WISP solves that. That can be put together in a couple weeks' time through interviews and best practices. All right, so not that hard. Then you've got these other things. Once you've got your plan in place, you do not want to wait for a real live attack to see if it's going to work, right? So a best practice is to simulate those cyber attacks and check your defenses, right? By simulating it, you're gonna see where the holes are. You're gonna build skills, and there's going to be confidence in your business that you're cyber secure. And it'll become a whole company cyber defense, because recall those earlier slides, we talked about ransomware being, malware being the top technology that wreaks havoc, but that social engineering and your people are among your greatest risk, right? So by now putting into practice your cybersecurity framework, you can test and train and mitigate social engineering risks to your business, right? So you'll want to simulate the attacks. It's better to rehearse it than to do it live, experience live. Then you'll leverage training and maybe specific training based on what you need to make sure that your type of business stays secure. And then once you've got all that going, you got to just keep it going. Security is not one and done. It is not one and done. Security is something that you have to always be vigilant on. The best security is persistent security. And fortunately, there's a way to solve for that as well. Cyber training can address all three of these boxes. So again, it looks daunting, right? Stimulate attacks, scorecard performance of your employees, rinse and repeat, schedule it regularly. It sounds complicated, but no, you can implement a persistent cyber training program very economically for your for your employees, and close those risks, reduce the chance of social engineering, reduce the chance of vishing, right? So that you're more secure. All right, so let's take a look at an example of a supply chain hack. Gang, I'm telling you, we see this monthly. I don't want to say weekly, but we see it monthly. These are the simple attacks. This is not this grandiose MGM attack. This is a different animal unto itself. A social engineering attack is really where they steal payments from you. The simplest is they steal a payment. There's some information here that you can see. The anti-phishing work group said that during the first half of 2021, there were 611,000 phishing attacks. Well, that was 2021 for the first half. What do you think it is now, right? Tens of millions. And then the FBI Crime Complaint Center reported that business email compromise, they call that BEC, delivered $1.8 billion in losses in, what was that? That was in 2020, right? So you can imagine that's gone up. What's that? That's stolen credit card information, and that's stolen transactions. And I want to tell you about these transactions, guys. This is a real risk to you, okay? So take a look at this this email that's out there before you. This is a sample of a supply chain hack. I modeled this on a supply chain hack, unfortunately, a good friend of mine had 4 weeks ago. 4 weeks ago. You probably know people that are subject to this. Here's what happens. The hackers do their research and find out information about your company and find maybe who's talking to who the salespeople are, and after they gather that information, they can craft an email message that looks convincing and tries to get you to do something disastrous. Like this one, craft an email to the accounts payable person at this guy's vendor, right? So that's what they do. They create this convincing text with enough information, enough names you're familiar with that they convince you to act. It's really designed to manipulate you with a sense of urgency and with some familiarity, right? So take a look at this one here. The subject, urgent payment instructions update. So the salesperson from your company is now sending out, a salesperson from your supplier is now sending you an email to your accounts payable team saying, hey, we changed our banking instructions. It looks like it's from your supplier, right? It even knows your name. And it creates this a sense of urgency that you got to act and send the next payment, send your next check to this new banking information. And it closes with, I appreciate your prompt response. Great. So here it is, right in the middle of your supply chain, an email. And if you're not paying attention and you don't realize it's from a fake supplier, not your real supplier, that it's using maybe the guy or gal's name you're used to, the salesperson from your vendor that you're used to, and they trick you into sending a transaction, sending a payment, to their bank and not theirs. And then once they get it in their bank, it's gone. And it wasn't even hard. They didn't ask for it in crypto or anything like that. You voluntarily gave it to them, mistaking that this was actually the salesperson for your supplier. Not great. So this happens, like I said, monthly. And it's not huge, right? It's not like that huge MGM attack. This is maybe that $40,000 payment, $25,000 payment. Unfortunately, it was a $43,000 payment for one of our accountants 3 months ago. And unfortunately, it was the same accounting firm that had one 2 years ago, but enough time had passed and their players had changed out and there wasn't training. So this accounting firm got had a supply chain hack twice and gave up about $68,000 over the course of 2 years. So let me ask you, does cyber insurance or cybersecurity technology sound too expensive to you? For $68,000, that client could have had a lot of cybersecurity defenses that would have used AI to read this email, see that it's a fake supplier, find a couple of gaps in it, and stop that phishing attack. That phishing attack into the account. So there it is, gang. Watch for supply chain, right? It's real easy, and it happens all the time. We're seeing it, unfortunately, on a monthly basis. People voluntarily paying the cyber criminal because they got spoofed, they got socially engineered, they got tricked with a compelling email. Sam.
So you alluded to it, Bob. Those best-in-class technologies that are readily available today, they have evolved so much over the last 5 to 10 years. The antivirus of a decade ago is now the threat hunting of today. So in those best-in-class solutions, we are seeing those organizations that are leading the pack. If you're looking at the Gartner quadrant, right, they're all leveraging artificial intelligence and machine learning. And so if we jump to the next one, so let's talk about, how AI is being used. AI and machine learning are able to, they can analyze these really massive sets of data very quickly, much faster than you or I could do it with all the training in the world. So it's looking at large volumes of network traffic and user behavior. It's also going to look at behavior of software or those executables. So you download an update to Zoom, that's going to be an executable file. Your threat hunting engines that are available now, if you have those deployed, it's going to be looking at the activity behind that pattern. So rather than 10 years ago, we had signature-based antivirus that would wait until something happened. It would recognize the signature of the bad thing and say, oh, by the way, this happened, you should go address it. And then, wouldn't know about new threats until you had an update to your software. With threat hunting now, these are really robust solutions that are often cloud native. And why that's important is there's these huge libraries of threats. And so these threat hunting engines have dissected every threat that they know about across billions of endpoints that they protect and can identify very quickly if something is following a pattern of behavior that's consistent with one of those malwares that we talked about, a Trojan, a worm, a ransomware. And it's able to take that and in real time quarantine it and remediate it in most cases. And when it can't remediate it based on the information that it has available, it can still block it, quarantine it, and then send it to humans. So the best solutions have a human desk on the other side that's analyzing those alerts in the event that the tool can't say, yes, we can definitively say this needs to be completely blocked. And then a real human can take all their years of experience and expertise and say, yes, this is bad, or no, we can let this go through. So AI and machine learning are also able to classify and analyze those malware samples. It can also detect phishing. Bob was talking about having tools in place to stop emails like the one he had up on the screen, that example that had obviously been cleaned, right? It was from fake supplier. Any one of us could have spotted that, but it's a perfect example. And what some of these AI-driven phishing detection solutions will do is they will analyze every aspect of that email, hundreds of details in the email, and then use what it knows about phishing attacks and business email compromise, and block those emails from being delivered to users. So really great technology that's emerged over the last couple of years. AI and machine learning are also being leveraged in vulnerability management today. So your vulnerability scans that are looking at those frameworks Bob was talking about. There's scans that your service providers can run to look how closely you're complying with the FTC safeguard rule or the IRS 4557. And then, in terms of the incident response, the use of AI and machine learning really automates the orchestration and response of recovery. So when it all comes down to it, it's about business continuity, making sure there's not downtime. And so those best-in-class solutions really get us there. And I think we have an example on the next slide about sort of how this all goes into play. Yeah. So managed detection and response, underneath managed detection and response is going to be a threat hunting agent. So some kind of software that gets deployed, installed on your laptops, desktops, things like that. And the managed side of it is having humans, so eyes on glass on the other side of that, and responding to things that are detected that can't automatically be remediated. So remember, an attack is initiated. That threat hunting agent is going to detect something that might be suspicious in the behavior of that software or of that file or of that user. It's going to analyze that. It's going to very quickly decide how to respond, and whether that's going to be a response that is going to be quarantine it and remediate it. In other words, get rid of all of the hints that it used to exist there, so that we move on to just being recovered, or it's going to send it off to that security desk. We actually have a couple of real world examples over the last couple of weeks for you. So I met with our director of cybersecurity services. If you've been on previous webinars, you might have met her. Tammy Jutras is just brilliant at this. And I asked her, I said, Tammy, can you share with me how some of the tools that we leverage that have AI and machine learning, how they've blocked attacks on our customers? And so she shared with me that one of our tools effectively blocked and quarantined a tool on one of our customers' endpoints that bad actors were trying to leverage in a malicious manner. And so it was one of those screen sharing tools. And so they were trying to leverage a vulnerability in that software to gain access to our customer's environment. But the behavior that was being analyzed said, whoa, this doesn't look quite right, and immediately sent an alert off to our security desk and blocked and quarantined the effort. And then on another customer, we had a SIM deployed for this one. And so a SIM is that Bob, security incident and event monitoring, or right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so that tool is effectively gathering logs. Everything that's happening on a network, it's collecting a log of it. But it also can send alerts if it sees something that's suspicious. And in this instance, the SIM that was deployed notified our security desk that one of our customers' users' email accounts may have been compromised. And so often we don't find out that our email's compromised until somebody calls us and says, hey, I got this weird email from you. Did you really mean to ask me for this information? Or someone forwards us an email and says, hey, I got this from you. This doesn't look quite right. But in this case, a tool leveraging AI identified that the email was compromised. We were able to proactively uncompromise that email and get that user back to good with almost no downtime. So that's two very small instances, but that's what I got, Bob, just in the last couple of weeks, things that we've seen.
Sam, I know that giving up your credentials and having a hacker get your credentials is usually game over, right? How in the world would you understand if it was a cyber criminal, behind the keyboard once they got your valid credentials? And I know that's a big push that's afoot in the industry, in the cybercrime industry today. Get people to give up their credentials. So Sam, I know it used to be game over if somebody got your credentials. They'd run wild. How is it that AI can help in that scenario where somebody's given their valid credentials to a cyber criminal?
Well, beyond beyond multi-factor, now you have smart multi-factor or adaptive multi-factor authentication. So now it can look at not only the credentials that are being used and the fact that maybe they've even figured out how to bypass multi-factor authentication. Hoping that everybody has that on. I'm going to give my PSA, turn it on everywhere if it's not on already, including LinkedIn. So anyway, it'll look at and say, okay, the credentials are valid, MFA token is good, but adaptive MFA is also going to look at the location from which the credentials are being used. So if that user always logs in from Tampa and logged in this morning from Tampa, but 2 hours later they're logging in from the UK, then adaptive multi-factor is smart enough to say, no, that's not possible, and block that login.
Excellent example. I understand that this XDR technology and MDR technology also had the ability, like you're talking about, to observe behavior. Is that right? So behavior would probably behavioral analytics of that user could also get tipped that somebody's now acting bad. Is that correct?
Yep. So some of the extended detection and response technology can also do that. Another one that is looking at user behavior, not just the behavior of software or data, but of people, is in some of those AI-driven mail phishing filtering tools that can be deployed. And so what those will do is actually look at behavior. So who are your top collaborators? Who do you talk to all the time? And then if something comes in that is totally out of character for something that you deal with, for example, your level 1 technicians that never approve invoices suddenly are getting invoice approval requests, right? It's clearly a phishing attempt because none of our vendors would be sending invoice approvals to those resources. So smart technology will look at that and say, oh, we better not send this through because this isn't consistent with what that person's role is and who that person collaborates with. But if it goes to the finance team, it's going to look at it in a different context. It's going to look at it in a different context, analyze it, and be really sure before it passes it through.
That's an amazing explanation, Sam, how artificial intelligence can do all that analysis. Security tactics and configuration can prevent a lot of things, but the analysis, the deeper analysis, really through AI is enabling a better defense.
In fractions of seconds. So we've talked about the what and the how behind the evolving threat landscape, right? Bad actors starting to work in these very collaborative networks of bad actors and ransomware, malware as a service. We've talked about ways that bad actors are using credible information that's publicly available to them to manipulate us and convince us to give up our information, our credentials, our passwords, our access to our data. And we've talked about some of the tools they can help to detect and prevent some of those attacks. But I think we can really boil it all down. Remember, stealing information, data is the goal. And to protect that data, you have 3 areas of defense effectively that you're looking at. You're looking at protecting your systems, and you do that through tools largely. You largely protect your systems with tools. So software on your endpoints, software that's looking at your firewall in the office, VPNs and other types of remote work security practices. So those are some of the tools that you can have in place. You're also going to attack and look at your people and your processes. So cybersecurity awareness training and testing, but not only the training and testing, you want to look for a solution that has ongoing simulations and ongoing training on a recurring basis. And then you want to have your policies in place. So your policies, your rules, and all of that's really going to be outlined in your written information security plan. That's where you start. So that's where you look at your environment, you identify all of your risks, and then in your WISP, you say, okay, this is how I'm protecting from those. And then you build that culture of security around that document and around that training. And we talked a little about, Bob brought up, well, how do you know if it's the person, even if it's not adaptive MFA, just turn on MFA. It should be on everywhere. It's the lowest level of effort thing you can do. It's going to be free in almost every system that you use it in. And it's that one extra little layer of protection that you can add. And that's something you can do today.
All right, thanks, Sam. And great summary point here to realize it's you work to solve the people challenge gap in security, turn on the right processes and tools, implement the right processes and policies, and turn on the right tools. So I want to change it up with everybody on the call today, and this might be a little bit kind of shocking or challenging to you, but here's something that we're learning more and more about in the industry. Visory is learning in the industry as we get deeper and deeper in. So obviously the question is, are you ready to be secure? Is your practice secure? Is your firm secure? But here's the challenge. There's an opportunity, and more importantly, there's a need for accountants to help solve these security challenges for your customers. So the provocation is that accountants really need to move to the security space and shift from being consumers of security technology to playing a role as advisors. And here's what we're finding. So we just went through this. You saw it. There's just increasing cyber risk out in the market today, and it's not just the big boys. They're not just targeting Caesars and MGM and pipelines and companies like that. They're going after everybody. They're going after their financial transactions. They're infiltrating their supply chain. So the risks are increasing. Now compliance is showing up. More and more industries are regulating how data is managed and how risk is managed for their industries. We see it in the wealth management space with FINRA, SEC. We see IRS regulations. We see all manner of state regulations showing up. So that's hitting you. That's also hitting your customers. And then there's more and more this business insurance conundrum. How many of your clients have asked you how to fill out the security questionnaire that their business insurer is now forcing them to fill out? We fill them out weekly. I should say we help fill them out weekly. We can't sign any of those, but we can help our clients fill those out. And it's really around making sure the clients have a security posture and ideally a security plan. So business insurance is making this more and more an everyday problem for your everyday customers. And consequently, that's just translating to more financial risk for clients. And hey, that's what we deal with as accountants. We help manage the financial risk for our clients. So consequently, this is a space where accountants can build more client trust and deliver more value against all these problems and challenges cybersecurity is bringing to your customer base. Consequently, it's another form of advisory, and it's certainly another chance for firm revenue and a potential competitive advantage in the market today. So that's what's afoot, and it's creating a compelling position for the accountant to play a significant role in helping defend their clients against cybersecurity risks. So it's on. Cybersecurity disruption is on. Take a look at it. We just walked through 40 minutes of how cybercrime is getting more pervasive and more aggressive. So this is a great place for you to join with your partners, your traditional partners like Visory and Swissnet in the back history, and help your clients solve these challenges. Advisory is a natural place for accountants. For small business, you're likely the only advisor the client has, right? And you've already been doing risk management, and cybersecurity is risk management. And then we know that the largest accounting firms have huge revenues and solve huge problems for companies today, and are regularly advising in these places. Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, Clifton Larson, all manner are in this space already. And then a quote somebody put out there that I saw is, it can be an add-on to your practice, another source of value, another source of revenue for you to deliver to your clients. And then guess what, gang? If you haven't noticed what's going on with the AICPA and NASBA, the CPA exam changed this year. It's now called CPA Evolution. CPA Evolution 24. Here it is. Got implemented in January. And here's a quote from a principal in the industry of what's afoot. With the changing marketplace and growth in the body of knowledge required for CPA candidates, there have been concerns that the approach to licensure is not sustainable. The CPA Evolution Group decided that the exam needs to be re-envisioned to incorporate technology in a significant way, right? So the new exam, the new CPA exam, requires you to pass three core sections, but also specify that you pass a discipline. And those three disciplines are business analysis and reporting, tax compliance and planning, and get this, information systems and controls. So the AICPA, NASBA, they all believe that this is a place for everyday accountants and bookkeepers to play a more significant role in the technology challenges that clients have. So there it is. There's a call to action. You've got to secure your practice. And Sam walked you through a lot of those elements that are really important. Have a written information security plan. Leverage AI to defend against malware. That's that MDR or XDR program. And train your team, because social engineering is getting better and better, and it's getting harder and harder to sift the good emails between the phishing emails. So definitely a call to action there. And then one more, if you're interested, make the move, get secure, and then help your clients solve this problem too. Visory can't get everywhere, and Visory's got this great history of partnering with our accountants to bring them to the cloud, to bring them technology and make them secure. In fact, Sam, what are we? I think 4,000 or 5,000 clients we've helped take to the cloud to make them more secure. We need to do the same for more and more small and medium businesses that are your clients. So we'll help. And there's a special offer that I wanted to make available today, that we're looking for 2 to 3 accounting firms that might have interest in building out their security practice. We'll implement your security free of charge, get you square, and then we'll train your team on how to approach the cybersecurity challenges your clients have. Guess what? They're not dissimilar to the challenges you have, so you're already familiar. But we can then partner with you and help take real defenses and prevent real risk and cybercrime within your customer base. So just a new thought for you to take home today. You've got to become cyber secure, and at the same time, this could be your chance to offer and help secure your customer base against these same challenges that they're facing. You're already a risk manager. This could be a great place if you're interested in bringing more value and really helping your clients be more financially secure.
We'd love to hear from you. We do have a QR code for interest submission, and when you're thinking about your client base and thinking about how that might fit into your services, remember that the more collaborative an organization is, the more at risk they are. We consistently see financial services and construction and manufacturing in the top industries that are under attack. It's not limited to them, but I think that the underlining commonality, Bob, is that the more collaborative you are, the more threat vectors you have, or the more points of entry bad actors have. So use the code, email us if you have questions. This will come out in an email as well tomorrow with a link out to the recording. Hopefully today we accomplished what we came here to accomplish, which is where are we today and how are things evolving? How can you leverage AI just like the bad actors are leveraging AI, just in the opposite way, right? What can you do to train your employees and raise awareness, build that culture of security? And the fourth one that Bob brought you is your clients' needs are evolving, and you are uniquely positioned to advise and help them protect their businesses, provide that business continuity, so that in the event of an attack, they have a way to recover. Because it's really not a matter of if anymore, right? It's really a matter of when, and will you have the right controls, the best possible controls in place in that day.
Thanks, Sam, and I want to say thanks to Mandy Sullivan for coordinating our presentation today, and thanks to everybody for attending. Look forward to following up and in answering any questions, and to continue to have the upper hand against these cyber criminals. As they innovate, we do too, and you can as well.
Thanks, everybody.